What's up? Thank you for joining us on what I promise you is yet another incredible episode of Liberty Inc., your source for all things liberty in the great state of North Carolina. I, as always, am your friendly neighborhood communications director, Rob Yates, and I'm stoked to bring you this show. First, we have Justin Herbe come on, and Christina Aragues joins us along with James Bledsoe as we continue our OPP, Other People's Parties series, part 2. James is the chair of the Veterans Party of North Carolina. We were planning to have a discussion on just, being a third party, so to speak. And it turned into perhaps let's just say you might want to sit down while you listen to the first part of this episode. It got deep. It got very, very real as they talked about sort of their military experiences, reintegration, people they've lost, and what the government's doing. I highly recommend it. We follow that up with a second interview, still OPP, Republican treasurer and gubernatorial nominee seeking the Republican nomination for North Carolina governor, Dale Folwell, Ryan Brown, LPNC chair, and Travis Groo, LPWake chair, join me for that one. Reach out if you got anything, communications@lpnc.org. I want feedback and I could use some help, and I really hope you all enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone. Thank you for jumping back on. This is the guest portion of this episode, OPP Part 2, Other People's Parties. And we have with us the chair of the Veterans Party of North Carolina, James Bledsoe. James, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi there. Thank you for having me on. Again, my name is James Bledsoe. I've been the chair of the Veterans Party since 2017 and really happy to be on.
And tell me real quick, like, what is, I know we're going to get into this in detail, but what does the Veterans Party do? What is your motto? What is your raison d'etre, if you will?
Sure. Well, short story is we're constitutional orthodoxists. We are very, very liberty-minded. We believe in accountability and the 9th and 10th Amendment overall. It is short story on that one.
Excellent. Big fan of the 10th myself. And then with us, I'm actually the only non-veteran on this panel, but I don't know. Thank you all for your service up front. Before I get into saying jokes and stupid things, and sincerely, thank you all for your service. Coming next to Justin. Justin, yeah, you're ready. Go for it.
Hi. Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me on. My name's Justin Herbe. I'm running for Fayetteville City Council, District 5.
And I want to say, of all of the corrupt local governments, Fayetteville, Justin's not saying that I am. You can chime into whatever point you want, but Fayetteville is giving Gastonia a run for their money. And if you follow local North Carolina politics, that is a bad thing. Their mayor was under investigation, then essentially found himself to be innocent, and a city council member resigned in protest. And then the new city council just decided to try to give themselves extended staggered terms because, the term accountability is just a joke that we throw around.
Yeah, you said that. I heard you say that on your last episode. I was getting ready for this, and I'm pretty disappointed in what we have here. They weren't just trying to change their terms; they were trying to increase their term lengths from 2 to 4 years. And thanks to Christina, she went down with a group of large people and fought against it, and finally they did decide to listen to the people. It's one time in a million that they ever do that, but they listened to us and they decide not to change their term length.
Yeah. This is why it's important. Everyone go to Justin's website. There'll be plenty of opportunity for me to show it, give money, help out. And then Justin, I think that is a wonderful introduction for someone who probably needs no introduction. Our candidates coordinator.
Oh, me, Christina. Oh, yeah. I want to say both Justin and I were in the he was in the Army. He's retired. I'm still trying to retire. I started in the Air Force and switched to the Army for, gosh, I don't know, about 20 years now. But yeah, I'm the candidate coordinator for North Carolina, and I love freedom.
So along those lines, James, something we were starting to talk about before we hit record, but I'd love for you to get into it. What is it? And we discussed this with Larry Sharp. I've talked about this with I forget, a couple other vets that we've had on. What do you think it is about being in the military that makes people so liberty-minded?
Well, that is a tough question. I mean, Christina, you can attest to this as well. I mean, I'm still in, I'm on my 18th year and I'm trying to get to my 20th, but it's once you've worked long enough for the government, it's just like that farmer's commercial, you know, you've seen a thing or two because you've done a thing or two. And after a while, you really just don't want any part of it. I mean, there's a lot of people that will try to, you know, bring that out to the world like, oh, hey, yeah, you know, we should have more government involvement. And then there's other vets like myself that are like, you know what, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. You know, I love my job, but perhaps the rest of the world kind of needs to take a step back.
I mean, certainly the Army, well, not the Army, excuse me, the military in general tends to skew pretty heavily Republican. And then the retired members, especially those who retire earlier, I feel like they start to skew libertarian. And as we have gained more prominence, you see more of them come along. And I know we're not the same, but I'm almost using veterans and libertarian interchangeably in this case, because our philosophical differences are subtle and small.
Yeah.
And where if either one of us ended up with the world the other one envisions, we'd be pretty happy with it.
Yeah. I mean, well, okay, so I'll speak from my own account. So when I first deployed, it was during George Bush's, you know, GW. It was 2007 for 15 months, and that was my first taste of hating the Republican Party. And that was just because the first thing we had heard when we had gotten into theater was, hey, you may run into some trouble because you're military, and also veterans have now been put on the watch list. And that was the first thing. Like, wait, we just got here. Why am I, just because I deployed, am I being put on a watch list? And that was the thing, was within 1 year of your deployment, you were put on a watch list. And, you know, I didn't like George Bush to begin with. Like, I had mad TV posters of the guy up in my barracks room of him, Cheney, and everybody else. And I just didn't like the guy. I mean, here I was in the middle of the desert. You know, I didn't have the equipment that I needed. Things were going not so great. And towards the end of my career, I got the taste of Obama. And that was not as fun either, because a lot of my brothers, I was like, hey, yeah, we had signed 8-year contracts. Now we're getting kicked out, or like our services are no longer required mid-deployment.
Wow.
Like, so I got a taste of both, of hating both parties. And that was my, you know, quick dive down into hating the duopoly.
It's that's actually cool. Justin and Christina, give your military origin stories.
So I joined, 20 years ago, I went to ROTC at Ohio State University. I was a patriotic American. I was raised by conservative parents in Cincinnati, and I wanted to join the military to get a free education. I applied to West Point. I didn't make it in, so I got a scholarship, but I wanted to serve my country for a very long time. I grew up in the woods of Kentucky as a child, playing in the hills, shooting other kids with sticks. And I kind of think, like every other child that was there, you know, it was destined to be in the Army. But once, kind of like has been said, once you get into the Army, it becomes political the higher up you go. And I don't know if you're much of a conspiracy theorist or not, but 3 years ago, the deep state.
Yeah.
Good.
It's how thick is your tinfoil hat with this crowd?
3 years ago, the deep state used the COVID vaccine to weed out Christians and conservatives out of the military. The people that refused the vaccine had religious exemptions, and they want to get rid of people who don't follow orders.
You know, last week we had
illegal orders. I gotta say that, illegal orders.
Yep.
And immoral. Last week we had George Cormos on. He's running for town of Carteret Council, and he so So he was reserve after 20 years, and then he didn't get his reserve contract renewed. If that sounds, I'm probably using the terminology
that's
wrong,
right.
but because he wouldn't take the vaccine too.
Same thing with me. I mean, I got removed for a big long portion, and thankfully enough to Army, incompetence, intentional, I got to come back in.
Oh, nice.
And what about you, Christina? You said you're Air Force and then Army, but you didn't say a whole lot more.
Oh yeah, I think I was 3 or 4 when I saw G.I. Joe, and I said I wanted to do that. My dad said I couldn't because I was a girl, so of course I did. So I mean, I always wanted to join, and I found out I had asthma when I was 16, so I was like, oh, I guess I can't. And then somewhere in college, I was going broke, pre 9/11, and I was like, you know what? I bet you I could skirt in through the Air Force. Bet you I could hide asthma in the Air Force. So I did. I was like, I need to pay for college. So yeah, I joined the Air Force, and I was like, there's never going to be a war. Everything will be fine.
2 weeks later.
Yeah, about a year later, clearly things changed. And I was a medic, and that was really interesting. And then they sent all the medics to different places, and I volunteered to go to Germany and do evacs from Afghanistan and Iraq. And that's what made me want to switch to the Army, because I saw all these soldiers that lacked leadership, and they would just, a lot of them, you receive them and they're a hot mess, but they're only temporary with us, so they can go to the next stage. And so mostly what you can do is just listen to them and drug them up, So you hear their stories of incompetence.
How do I sign up for that? Just that part of it.
Right. I would sneak out the ones that could walk to the what are the Hofbrauhauses, the breweries in Germany.
Yep.
I'd sneak them out. I was like, it stinks that they're here for just a few days and they just came for war. I mean, we gotta have a beer, right?
Yeah, let them have a beer.
Yeah. So that made me switch to the Army. And my commander found out I had a bachelor's degree, so he's like, you're going to become an officer, you're not going to be a medic in the Army. And that's what I did. And I really, really loved my service. I was born a Libertarian, so I didn't change my ideas. I just got to see more of how it was, and the waste, the abuse of taxpayer money, I was fully against the Iraq war. It didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But it didn't mean I didn't believe in the soldiers and the people that served, and that they didn't need leadership, and they didn't need somebody who would fight for them. So as Justin said, the military can be very political. That's not my thing ever. It was just funny because obviously I'm in politics, but made a lot of people angry, but it was very fun. And then I switched to the reserves about 7 years ago. Yeah. And I'm struggling because I know I need to get out of the military, but it's hard because it's been a part of me since I was 19. So
Understandable.
Yeah, it's painful because there's no place for me left in the military anymore. As Justin said, and I'm sure James feels the same way. They're pushing out a lot of people who think for themselves.
Yeah.
And the COVID vaccine was a huge issue because I've been exempt from vaccines for over 7 years because my body can't process them. And then with me, they really fought it. The generals above me fought for me to get an exemption. And still when it got to the Surgeon General, except when it got to the Surgeon General, they denied it. And so fight. And it was extremely difficult part. And when I'm no longer in the military, I'll tell you what really happened in the end. But
I must have had the same general deny us, because I've got a nice 20-page long paper over here telling me how much of a dirtbag I am for using it. Yeah.
I didn't get any of that. I had, because my records show that I can't have a flu vaccine. I can't have that vaccine. It's been so long, that all the generals above me really supported it. And it was the Army Reserve Surgeon General that denied it, and they didn't give a single medical exemption to one single person in the Army Reserves.
Some unelected, untrained, just idiot bureaucrat has that much power over your life. I hate that nonsense.
That upset the generals above me too, because they're like, why am I still in? What am I still sacrificing if I can't fight for the soldiers?
Jackass.
Yeah. That was I think that was a big turning point for a lot of us, where you're like, where do I even belong anymore if we can't fight for anything?
Well, so that's sort of, so James, you're talking about W. So W is the last and only Republican I ever voted for president. Never voted for a Democrat, and only the first time. And even now, as conflicted as I am about it, it's like, but we would have had Al Gore. Like,
Yeah.
it could have been even worse.
Yeah. In retrospect, now I know. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I was independent Virginia. They didn't have Libertarian. I've been Libertarian since I've been in North Carolina, like 15 years. And one of the things that got to me is like, I got a lot of friends that went overseas. I had a very good friend who was killed in Iraq. It was a long time ago, but then they'd come back and like both parties are like, well, you don't take care of our vets. Well, you don't take care of our vets. And I'm like, there's a Vietnam vet literally living on that street corner right there. Like, you could start right there, like right now. Like,
yeah,
neither of them does anything for the vets. They pay a bunch of lip service. They break people. And if you're not mentally strong enough to come back, then you're broken, and that's it. And they just throw you out. And your consolation is the VA, which is like the worst of the worst, from my understanding, of everything government does wrong. It's
socialized medicine. So, I mean, if you would like a taste of what Canada's going through, of having to wait and wait and wait, fast forward 3 months. Oh, hey, yeah, we can finally see you. I mean,
but my arms
it's a different socialized medicine. It's like Chinese socialized medicine, right? Where it's like, if you are rated a certain amount or at a certain way, you get seen right away.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's what's different. Is I have an extremely great experience of being, when I left active duty and you get rated, and I got rated 100% for a head injury I had, and I have the best medical care of anything, period.
The head injury does explain a lot. I didn't know that.
See, mine was the exact opposite. I got out of active duty from Germany, and after 15 months in Afghanistan, they said, "Oh no, your brain is absolutely fine. It's just thinking a different way now. It rewired itself." And me being a dumb kid at the time, like I didn't understand what that meant, and I was like, all right. So technically I'm fine. I just have a slight speech impediment at the time. Oh, okay, I guess I'm fine then, but I'm not.
And a lot's changed since he left, though. I think so much pushed it. And
oh yeah.
And it was actually the VA secretary. I think his last name was Dole at the time. I'd have to look it up. But I met him in real life, and he was a veteran. His son was in. And when even though he's appointed under Obama, he did a lot for the VA. He pushed a lot through. A lot of reform. And I actually think, I'm going to disagree with you, Rob, for once. I think the veterans get a ton of help. So much it's almost overwhelming. I think a lot of us are used to being spoon-fed in the military, because even a job in the military is like being in socialized society, right? Like, you get a paycheck if you just breathe. As long as you keep doing your things, you get moved up. And a lot of them don't think for themselves, so they'll look for the things. So that veteran on that corner, I've worked with those homeless veterans, and I've tried to help them get in places and do things. And a lot of them, they just don't. They don't want to do the work themselves, or they do have mental issues that can't get them past it. And I don't think there's anything we can really do about that.
So that's fair. So maybe we're doing better now, but we did a terrible job for a very long time. That's how that veteran ended up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Justin, on the healthcare thing, I saw you shaking your head. What's been your VA experience?
That's a long story. I did not expect to talk about this. Just 2 weeks ago, my PTSD rating went from 70% to 0. And so that's great in the sense that I've recovered a lot from experiences that I went through in the Army. I served 17 years, and I've been in combat every time I deployed. So there's a lot to talk about. And now that my rating is down to 0, it's been a good 2 years since I've been out. But if things ever get stressful again, what I do worry about is getting the treatment that I used to get. Like Christina said, it was great when I was getting out. They really took care of me. But now that I don't have a rating, I hope that I still get the treatment if it's ever needed.
That's huge, because they'll rate you. It's like what percentage you have, and then if that happened during combat. So there's all these tiers. So if you're at 100% and it's from combat related, you're going to be seen right away. But let's say you're a Vietnam vet and they didn't have the same rating system back then, and you're rated 20% and they didn't even attach combat rating to it, you're kind of screwed.
Well, PTSD is really just, I mean, I shouldn't say just as I'm trivializing it, but it's your fight or flight response, like on hyper overdrive. Like everything is really literally life or death in the moment, and you can't stop it.
And adrenaline is addictive too.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's not fight or flight. It's just like it's like
It's-
I
you
need
get
this.
you
Yeah.
get you get hooked on being excited
Mhm.
Well,
and being under. You get it's like it feels good to be under stress.
Yeah, they call
You know,
that
that's kind of the-
orgasm. At least that's what it was
Orgasm?
back in back that day.
It'd be funny if it wasn't so spot on.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get a huge, like, you get a dopamine release, you get a norepinephrine release, cortisol, it lingers, but if you burn it up, you get all these endorphins. The physiological response is unbelievable because we evolved for that. Because it's like if a bear is chasing you 2 million years ago, like, you got to be ready to run from that bear, and you got to like running from that bear. And that's really all it is. It's, you know, evolution doing its thing. But it is, and so I would love to hear more about this because I don't know at all. Because coming out of the military, it is an entirely different world. Like, you're not immediately like, we have a boss or a manager or a wife in my case. Like, there's somebody who's telling you what to do, and yes, sir. But in all seriousness, like, it's a different world. Like, you go out, you can make your own decisions. You're not scheduled. You don't have to be here if you don't shine your shoes or like make your weapons inspection or whatever it may be. So what is the integration back like?
So
Well,
2 years
Go ahead,
ago
sorry.
when I retired in 2021, and I became an entrepreneur at that time. I opened my own business. I bought into a franchise, and alongside my wife, we started operating in a pesticide company. So it was a great experience because the Army transition program pushes franchises because they tell you, hey, you're good at following orders, you're good at following a model. Now maybe go own and operate a franchise, and you'll do just as well as you did back in the Army. You have to do your market study, market analysis, and really research the area that you're opening the business in because they can still fail. After I did that business for the last 2 years, I've transitioned into a little bit of real estate, and I was investing in real estate ever since I joined the Army. So I was lucky to have an additional income, because if I didn't have the income that I had coming in from the VA disability and from the rental properties I have, I wouldn't be aware of what's going on in my local government. I would have to go out and get another job. I'd have to go maybe crawl back on base and be a DoD civilian, or worse, just clock in and clock out 9 to 5 at a factory or a corporate office where I'm sitting behind a computer. Because this is the big great thing with the VA disability, because they gave me enough money to support my family, I am able to pay attention to the local government. The government does not want you to know what's going on. They do things behind closed doors. They make decisions without us aware of it. There's no newspapers anymore. You don't know what's going on. No one reports on it. So thankfully, I met Christina back in January, joined the Libertarian Party at that time. And once my eyes were open to city government, it's disgusting. And that's been my transition out of the Army.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, no, my active duty transition was pretty rough. I came from, living in Germany nonetheless. So that was a big transition, was living for 4 years in a foreign country, and then coming, that on top of active duty at the time back in 2005, 2009, and then coming back to the States. That was a rough transition, going from a very well structured life to, hey, do whatever you want. And that is tough. That is really, really tough going from that. Where, like Christina said, everything's kind of spoon fed to you. You had to be at a place a certain time. And then after 5 o'clock, or, whenever your work is done, you're free to go. And then it's just back to your barracks room. But being in the reserves, it's a lot easier because 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks a year, you're in the Army Reserve. You're doing the Army thing. But the rest of your time, those other 28 days, you're doing your civilian job or whatever else. So
one of the things I've noticed about the vets that I know after the fact, and so, like, Christina, you're a really good example of this because you're one of the most free-spirited people I know.
I always have been.
and so you don't lose that part of your personality, but also you have this trait that every veteran I know
Every single one has, and you tell it like it is, and it's not
Yeah.
mean.
Mhm.
To every vet I know, to sugarcoat something is meaner.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
don't hold back. Why are you gonna, like, this is the way
Yeah.
it is. I'm not judging this person. I'm just saying what I see to be the truth. Is so the larger point I want to get to, though, and I'm interested again, this is fascinating. I usually can research stuff before I get into these conversations, but I just don't know much about coming out of the military. How much do you feel like it affected your personality?
Oh, like coming out of the military or while you're in?
Both being in it, the impact it's made, like you said, it's part of your life. I get that. That's everything we do that we care
Yeah.
about. But and then the transition, and then some of the things where it's like this place where I gave my whole life was ready to drop me because I didn't want to get some weird medical experiment done on me.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, being in didn't change my personality. I kept my personality. I would be told a lot, oh, you smiled at that gentleman. That means, you're hitting on him, or you're sleeping with him. That was a huge thing. They always told me to have a bitch face, right? I refused because I was like, people are going to make stuff up anyways. And I had a roommate once. She did always have that angry face, and guess she was sleeping with everybody. So it doesn't matter. But I kept my personality, and it made some people upset, but I honestly didn't care. And also kind of scared a lot of men in general, like especially higher ups, because I remember even one colonel, he's like, we need to run more. We need to run every morning 6 miles. And we're in this big conference room, at a weekly meeting. I looked at him and said, that's stupid. Like literally that's stupid. Let me tell you all the studies that say why. And he just stared at me because he's a full bird and I'm just a captain. And everyone there was like, yes. But people liked,
Did you run?
Did I what? No. I'm not a runner. And neither was and it was a special operations unit. And honestly, in special operations, like you're supposed to like keep up with your own physical fitness on your own and not have to do it as a group, because you're supposed to be more capable and self-sufficient. But getting out of the military, that was difficult because I felt like I had to tiptoe because I didn't know how to just keep being myself and just be very direct. And so thankfully, even though I'm in the corporate world, I work from home. So when I talk to people on the computer, through the computer, it's just about work. Because whenever I go into an office for a Christmas event or anything else, the veteran in me comes out and I say terrible things.
I know.
And guns always come up. Legalization of drugs always comes up. Everything inappropriate the civilian world doesn't want to talk about in the corporate office.
Amen.
And so, yeah, super lucky to work from home. Super lucky.
Why do you say amen?
It's the same thing with me. I mean, it's like you said, being nice or sugarcoating something is more of disrespect in my point. I'm like, okay, I get that you're trying to be nice, but would you please just give me the information? Like, I really wish, more people, like Christina would just be more direct. I mean, we could skipping all that would be good, but also I do the same things, when I'm working from home or even when I'm working from work, I'm still direct regardless. And that unfortunately has gotten me in trouble with that. But at least people say, yeah, he was very direct, but at least he, I can't tell if he was mean. But, same thing when it's in private setting, inappropriate stuff comes out. And, I was like, man, the government, it goes instantly political. And, all those thoughts just start coming out, back when you're on the private sector.
Well, and Justin, following up on what you said too about like the government has no transparency, everything happens behind closed doors. Do you find that people are like surprised that you're a veteran who has this, like, at the very least, be highly skeptical of the government stance?
No, I think
So they're that jaded. That's good news.
We're in the times today where conspiracy theories are real. Everyone's eyes are open.
Just
and they
2 months
realize,
down the road news.
Yeah, a lot of people are thankful that I'm running, and a lot of people are like, do you know what you're getting yourself into? And I tell them every day, yeah, I'm seeing what I'm getting myself into, and I can't sit by and watch this. I can't watch my country fall apart.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. See, I got a chip on my shoulder because I get asked, do you know what you're getting yourself into? And I'm like, nah, did they know what they're getting themselves into? That's my attitude going in.
I retired as a major in the Army, and if you know anything, what that means is, I didn't follow orders very well. I bucked the system. I stood up for the soldiers that were underneath me. I didn't play the game. And that's what I say to people when I'm going door to door. I didn't play the game in the Army. I retired as a major. I took care of the soldiers, and I'm going to be bucking the system when I'm on city council as well,
There we go.
in a good way.
Well, that's bucking the system just means like going back to, and James, actually, it's a good opportunity to ask you about what your party really stands for, but it just kind of means going back to the system that we're supposed to have. Like there is, and I'm certainly not trying to get into like a debate about like where CRT, for example, falls into things, but there's a very legitimate debate about how much of the sins of the past have left their marks on the soul of our country, right? But what I would argue in terms of the present day is that was not ever what our country was intended to be. Like, we should be working towards these ideals. Like, the Constitution sounds awesome. Why don't we try it out just once for like a week? Like, let's try the Constitution, because we never have. But yeah, so and not to just drop it the positive, but James, so like talk a little bit more about what the Veterans Party is like. So you're a constitutionalist, but it's not only for veterans, but the idea is.
So, I mean, when I came in, I had an issue with the name to begin with. I'm going to drop that first and foremost. I understand that there's trepidation with just the name itself. I mean, we're not just for veterans. We were started by veterans in 2012 because at the time it was Republicans and Democrats getting together and conspiring against veterans at the time to start taxing our VA pay. I mean, our veterans benefits. And it had gotten to that point because Obama was still guiding the military at the time. And it came up in Congress, in both the House and the Senate saying, hey, we're paying these guys an awful lot of money and we're spending an awful lot of money. How about, because we have millions and millions of vets out there and they're getting a tax-free paycheck each month. Why don't we get a little bit of that back? And that pissed a lot of people off, a lot of veterans. And 12 guys got together in a Facebook chat room and said, hey, we're done with this. These people have forgotten their oath of office, if they ever took one, and they've forgotten every value that has come before them. Even Lincoln said, hey, we will never repay this debt. And that's why there was so much put on, from the veterans hospitals at the time, and also everything that happened thereafter. So our Veterans Party was put forth with the ideas of, why don't we get back to our roots of the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Let's bring in military bearing into that and put it into a party and see where it goes. And that's what we did. I mean, we have mixes of libertarianism, republicanism, but also a lot of America First. Like, if you were to look at our platform, a lot of it is quite a lot of America First thing. Like, hey, secure the borders, and go from there. There's
some old school liberalism in there too. Like, freedom of speech matters. That used to be a very liberal perspective, and now it's like,
oh yeah, no, we are very about that. Like, we are bucking the original parties. Like, if you were to put us between a just a horizontal spectrum between Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians, we would be the halfway point between the Libertarian Party and the Republican Party, because we strictly adhere to the Constitution. We understand that we love our country, and we were founded on a set of values, traditions, and that work. After 200 years, a lot of these values that we still stand for work, and that was what our party was started on, was all that and traditionalism.
How, all three of you, how do you feel the country sort of treats its veterans? And not we were talking about before, not the system, not the VA, but like the citizens, the people.
You two want to answer that one first? I've got a very, very dark view on this one.
I think really good, but also I have to say I am a female, and I think females get treated differently when people find out you're a veteran, because they're like, I think they expect it more from men. And even the doctors I had to go to for, the VA to get my rating, they look at what I've done, like, oh, airborne, you've deployed, blah, blah, blah. And they think differently of you. And I think they give more respect, but I think how men get treated is different.
I think there's still a really strong support for our military. Desert Storm happened on my 9th birthday in 1991. And I remember watching the missiles fly by on the TV back and forth in the night vision every night. And I remember walking in a Support the Troops march. So during the 90s and early 2000s, there was a huge push to treat the Vietnam vets in a better manner. And during that time, we realized we abandoned them. And the United States has done a good job since then supporting them, and they support us as well. Personally, I love getting out speeding tickets when I show my government ID. And beyond that, everybody on the streets really supports us. And being in Fayetteville, nearly everyone has a tie to the veterans. Either spouse or themselves have served at some point in their life.
So I live in Wake County. A little bit.
Yeah, we're all waiting for your dark answer.
Yeah. Okay, so if you were to ask me that same question back in 2007, 2009, I would have told you that America loves its veterans. Absolutely, hands down. I've gotten out of speeding tickets because of it. I've had dinners paid for it. The respect that was there, it has definitely degraded. And living in the county that I do, we don't even make the top 50 of counties where veterans actually want to reside. And it kind of shows, like, if obviously with first responders, there's a deep respect there, even with veterans, we all respect each other. But when it comes to like the average person, or even on the left side of the aisle, there's disdain. And sometimes it's shown. Like, even when I've ran before, like, why even mention that you're a veteran? No one cares about that. You did whatever you did. We're here now. We're here to talk to you about this. We don't care about your military background. In fact, we don't want a veteran here. So that's been my response, at least live in Wake County and in politics.
That's
total opposite here, by the way. You better be a veteran here to an extent to run.
And you're both in the same area. I feel like in Charlotte, it's probably a little more traditional Democrat, liberal. Like, you're not going to get a whole bunch of just special kudos, but you'll get some respect. Like the Black Political Caucus, there's a lot of veteran influence there. I don't know, it's different. How do you all feel about so like, I consider myself 100% pro-veteran. Like, there's almost nothing more noble than, like, I'm willing to die to protect my country. That's amazing. That's why I always thank veterans. But then I'm kind of anti-military. And it's not like, I think we should have a strong defense force. And like, Justin Hinckley is our Second Amendment issues coordinator, and he's making a case that I'm at least listening to, that, like, in some incredibly limited capacity, there are strategic advantages to having, like, forward projection of your power that actually discourage conflict. Okay, I can listen to that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, though. It really, look at Niger right now. I mean, we have bases there, and they just had another coup. Every country we go into, we train their military, and they overthrow the government that's actually somewhat stable, and then they end up in coups back and forth and back and forth. And I've been in those countries.
897 foreign bases, I think. I don't think we're ever going to stop local stuff.
We're in 136 plus countries.
If we had 4 bases that could rapid respond to, like, big potential threats, I'd shut up. Like, we can close the other 891
But we do.
down.
But we do and we don't. Think about the whole movie 13 Hours that happened in Libya, right? There was a group, there were several groups around that area who sit in warehouses waiting to be called on. That's their whole job. And they didn't get to go because whoever was in charge, we know who was in charge, said no, they didn't want them to.
There's a hurricane.
There's no point. It's still political. Sorry. Oh, yeah, the recent hurricane. It was really upsetting because I was actually doing special operations logistics at that time, and my unit was in places in Africa at that time. So I knew exactly every location where someone could have responded and what their response time should have been and would have been if allowed. And it was disgusting because, one, why are you even taking us away from our families if we can't do our job? Like, I volunteered to deploy when my son was a year old. So I left my baby you know, with my parents, and I went overseas.
I've had a
But
1-year-old. It's
why?
not as noble as it sounds, Christina.
Yeah, yeah, oh kids. No, yeah. It was hard. It was really,
Yeah.
really hard. But it was more upsetting to realize that we were just there to make more money for the military industrial complex as opposed to protecting our country.
So I wasn't going to bring that up yet, because that was going to be my follow-up question. I was curious about, like, where do you all see, how do you balance sort of an anti-military attitude with a pro-veteran attitude? Because then I was going to get into how much influence does the good old MIC have?
I mean, I love deploying to see foreign countries. Super fun. I love getting paid to
yeah.
be in another country. I love that. I really wish we weren't doing it at all with taxpayer money. As a person, thank you for paying my salary and allowing me to command troops in 5 countries. That was awesome. But honestly, it's BS and it's a waste of money. And we're really just making gazillions of dollars for the Cheneys and whatever group
Raytheon.
they want to call themselves today, because they all change their names every other, you know, year. But then there's a lot of us in the military because we see it firsthand. And I could go on forever about all the waste I have seen of taxpayer money and how completely disgusting it is.
I'm a tanker, so I know about waste, or at least I used to be one. You know, I loved what I did when I deployed to
Can you
Afghanistan.
explain that? Because those two obviously got that joke. It made no sense to me whatsoever.
Okay, so so if, especially everyone that listens to this, so the
dirty
tanker-
tankers.
Yeah. Good old dirty tankers. I mean, I also went the inverse and I became Cav Scout too. So
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm infantry, but not really.
I mean, I'm also an engineer now. Like I did both of the 19 series and now I'm an engineer. So I get all of that. But to circle back, so an Abrams tank, it is a beast. It is a money sucking, gas guzzling beast that takes 8 gallons just to turn on. And it has about 500 gallons, you know, total. And this thing is only going to go maybe 1.2. It probably gets 1.2 gallons for the mile, depending on which version that you have. But the amount of ammunition, I mean, just the cost of the ammunition to shoot is intense. So.
And then they have to practice that every year near our town. And the Marines come and all the other.
Well, they don't have their tanks anymore, so that's cost-effective measure.
Yeah.
So.
And it shakes your whole house.
Yep.
So much money.
I didn't mean to cut you off if you want to keep running with the balance of projecting power and soldiers versus, but you said you made the dirty tanker joke and they laughed and I was like, I don't get it.
Oh yeah, no. So I mean, I went from being a tanker and I immediately got sent over to Germany, and they're like, hey, some genius decided in Congress decided to make the idea that maybe we shouldn't have armor in Europe anymore. And which was a terrible idea. They should have kept that there. That was a good strength, projection. And then
were you T2SCR? What unit were you?
I was first ID with 1-4 Cav. So I was in Schweinfurt. So funny thing is, my grandfather was on the same city as I was back in the 1950s, and we both deployed to the same base. But all the tanks went away in 2005. I cleaned them, washed them, made sure they were good to go, put them on the rail yard to be shipped out. And then they're like, okay, if you're staying, you're going to become a cavalry scout, and, you're all going to go airborne, and we're going to start, this whole brand new unit up, and we're going to go from there. And it was great. Our mission, we got to write our own doctrine. Like, our unit was not active since Vietnam, and we got to write our own doctrine, and we were put on a rapid response task. Same thing with Libya. Like, that was heartbreaking to see that. Like, going from being able to respond anywhere in the world, if they were to stick us on a plane, we could get to Ramstein Air Base within 2 hours, and then load up on the plane, jump out, be on the ground probably within 10. That like best case scenario. And then to have it pissed away like that. I share Christina's, view that, hey, we waste a lot of money, but also when I was in Afghanistan, I passed out thousands upon thousands of pounds of rice, beans, radios, food, carpets. I helped establish trade routes between villages where, like, maybe there are only 13 people in there, where, like, maybe there, or 12 of those were women, and the village chief was a 12-year-old male, who hadn't seen an American since 2003 when, we had first gone in. And like, hey, we're building a school nearby. Would you like to go? Would you or your sisters like to go? And also, would you like to be a part of this trade route? We're going to set up a local network of jingle truck drivers. I mean, they'll get that one. So that's like, imagine a semi truck with a bunch of chains and just some Mad Max style stuff going on, but it's all jingly and flowery and stuff. And we're going to, have it go between, all these villages. We're going to set up trade routes. That was a really great thing. That besides all the training to, commit violence, like very greatly in an amazing way, the opposite side, to be able to do that, to be able to establish trade routes and build a local coalition with villages and to get them medical supplies, food, get them the basics. That was amazing to me.
And it's all gone now.
Justin, were you in Afghanistan? I forgot.
Yeah, I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, so we've all been to Afghanistan, and when you say that something's been really great for them, it's frustrating because I know that bag of rice, just like welfare in this country, we could have paid $25 for it, but instead we paid KBR $100 for it or $300 for it. And so we got to feel good handing stuff out, but then at the same time, when you're on the logistics side, you see how, and I think Justin's logistics too.
When I was a lieutenant or captain, I went from the infantry to logistics, and so I went from I didn't kick in any doors, but I was on an advisory team, went on patrols every day with the Iraqis, and then I became a contracting officer. I reviewed the contract. I reviewed the contract for our chow hall, where we had multiple people from other countries: Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Philippines, Nepal, third world places, China, India, third world country, maybe not Chinese, but the Southeast Asia.
Worse than third world. I lived there for a couple of years. It is a shithole country.
Southeast Asia is it. I think it's still, well, we know it. We saw Sound of Freedom. There's slavery still going on in this world, and there is human trafficking still happening. We were giving hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I added up every meal to each soldier was probably costing $30 a meal, and all of this was going to
that's like McDonald's now after inflation. And
we had to pay the army too for that, depending on what rank you were.
So these meals were, like Christina said, going to KBR paying other countries, funding them while they have slave labor, making 300. I asked some of the workers, they made $300 a month, which was twice what they made back in Nepal. So and then our country was feeding our troops overseas for $30 each meal.
And our meals were terrible. And the contracts that said what we were supposed to have, we weren't getting. So that was frustrating too. We had a whole investigation on one of the bases I was at, because KBR was given millions to feed us, but yet we didn't have plates, like it was wild. And then we found out all our workers had TB. So then we all had to get a little thing in our, our files that said that we were exposed to TB because they paid some doctor $100 to give fake physicals. So, wow. I mean, it's just.
Rob, it gets worse the more that you keep asking these questions.
Yeah. And then what's worse.
No, I wondered, this is the most interesting discussion I've had in this podcast.
We've all been to Afghanistan and we all know how it ended. So we took all the millions of dollars and everything we built up for them, and we literally handed it to the Taliban. We didn't even give the Afghan government a chance. We handed our ammo, our everything to the Taliban. And it was just.
I'm one of the very few people, maybe only in the whole Libertarian Party, that doesn't think we should have left Afghanistan. And I'm not like a war hawk at all. The first invasion of Iraq got me politically active because I was like, this is horrible. Mm-hmm. I don't ever think we should have gone in, but I'm a sort of, if you spill your milk, you clean it up person. And all we did was just condemn a whole lot of people to suffer and die.
We should have left in 2003. We should have left in 2002.
That I would have been okay with.
It's tough because even in college, before I joined the military, I did this whole report on the women in Afghanistan and the Taliban and who we trained to create the Taliban, etc. We all know these stories. And I was really upset because they couldn't eat ice cream. They did these girls they don't have any freedom. But all we did was enable a populace to not be able to survive on their own because we stayed so long. And we empowered the wrong people, because we've all seen it where the rapists, the beaters, the corrupt ones, they got to stay. We either captured and released, or they were in charge of their town and we needed their influence. And so they got to stay being corrupt.
Well, we just
What did
followed
we
the
do?
model that works here. Why do we know who was on the Epstein Island list?
Oh, right.
It's because it's our
So
goddamn government.
why did Miss Ghislaine Maxwell go to prison for?
She's the only person ever in prison for child trafficking who trafficked to no one, apparently.
Clearly.
Yeah, ran into that a lot in Afghanistan, or not a lot, I should say. It ran into a very medieval system. But Rob, you know, or you got all three of you, do you know the origin story of the best man? Where
In weddings?
yeah, like in weddings.
I don't, and I know a ton about weddings, and I don't know that one. I can tell you all about where bridesmaids came from, wedding dresses, why the father walks down the veil. It's all about demons from like pre-Christian. But no, I have no idea where the best man comes from.
So that is where a man would go into a neighboring village and steal a woman, or, you know, this is the way it was told to me, that a man would go into another village, steal a woman, and the best man was meant to stand guard over the door with his sword drawn, ready to fend off the other village while the ceremony was going on. So that, unfortunately, that's something that we saw over there too. Like, Christina, I would have to disagree with you on the pullout thing, but while we were there, we ran into two villages separated by a mountain and a wadi, which, for your viewers that don't know, that's just a river basin, which is also used as a road. Okay. So these two villages that were maybe 200 meters or 300 feet, 600 feet apart, were constantly going from one village to another, stealing each other's wives and marrying at that moment constantly. And then we showed up like, okay, you guys have got to stop this. This is ridiculous. we've advanced as a society. We would like to tell you how this actually progressed in the rest of the world.
Were they open to it?
No, absolutely not. They kept going. Like, we couldn't, our hands were tied because we couldn't really do anything. Yeah.
It's cultural.
Yeah.
It is hard to change culture. I believe firmly that the best idea will eventually win, but for the idea to even be considered, you have to gain some degree of like perceived authority or expertise or standing for the, otherwise it becomes ad hominem. It doesn't matter how good the idea is. If you're the one presenting it, people will never uptake it.
That's absolutely right. I mean,
this is like heavy.
Let me tell you why, another reason why I hate that we were in Afghanistan for that long, because we weren't there for the people. We were there raping them for their lithium, copper, and everything else we could get of the minerals of that country. And then we handed it, literally, Biden handed those. We gave it all to China. Now China has all of it. And I feel like I sound like Trump saying that, but I'll tell you what, when you're military under Trump, we actually had toilet paper. We had toilet paper when Trump was president. So you felt safe being deployed under Trump because you knew his ego couldn't handle us being left there. Whereas
you don't
Biden,
have to like Trump. Does not like Trump did some things right. He did a lot of things wrong, just like every other president.
I mean, I certainly felt safe when the last time that I was deployed was when Iran launched their missiles at us, and we were in Erbil, and like the moment that they had spun up, like our captain brought us into the talks, like, hey, just letting you know, our base here is small enough that even if one of these missiles hits, it's going to wipe out everything plus 20%. So it doesn't matter where we are. We can go hide in a bunker or whatever. But, this was being fed in. Like, okay, I know at least if something happens, Trump's going to respond. I mean, and this is the one thing I will give him kudos for. I'm like, okay, no one died, so we don't have to counterattack. It's still crap that we just got hit. But the guy that we were going after, I knew about him. Like that was the trading cards. If you all remember that, back when we had first entered the service, there was trading cards. Like, if you get deployed and you see this dude, this is instant promotion. This is like your cup of jujubes. Like,
it was like already cleared to take this person out. Yeah,
like we knew about Soleimani like early on. Like when I first came in, like, oh hey, so if you guys ever see this guy on your card, take him out. You'll get nonstop beer for the rest of your life from every veteran.
I might do it for that.
Your cup will never be empty. If you can find this guy, this is the one dude that's killing all of us over here. This guy is the prime IED maker. He's teaching people how to do it. And personally, when I was over there, I was like, oh my God, they finally got him. This is fantastic. I don't care what happens. And then, Iran launched missiles. I'm like, okay, I need to walk that one back.
But we attacked their people right after that on the airport, and then everyone said Trump was going to start World War III, and I a little bit did want to jump into Iran. I was really kind of excited
I was like,
about that.
Let's go. You know what? I've always wanted to do this. Let's go to Iran.
I just wanted to free the women again. Sorry, I just wanted them to be able to eat ice cream on the streets.
Oh, yeah.
Iran, and I'm not advocating for regime change. It doesn't work. But Iran's interesting in that, like, when we went into Afghanistan, I mean, and Justin, let me start with you. Like, I've read Sebastian Junger's War. I've watched a bunch of documentaries on it, and there are some places that are developed, but most of Afghanistan is like 600 years behind the Western world. Is that inaccurate?
Yeah, it's accurate.
I mean, what's it like there?
It's I think a really good book to read would be the The Great Game. Is that what it is, Chris? The Great Game, and it talks about why we were in Afghanistan, and we're there because we're there. And that is when I ask generals, what are we doing here? That's the answer. Just
we're here. This is what we're doing.
But yeah. Super political. That's a great question. Thanks. And no one knows. No one knows anymore. That was 20 years ago. We've forgotten. Some of the people that brought us there are dead. And yeah, it's an old country. We're still, I think we're preventing the Russians and Chinese from trying to get inside Afghanistan, but we've handed it over to them after we've wasted billions and billions of dollars, and we have nothing to show for it.
What's it like if you get like sick or injured there?
Depends on who you are.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or where you are, actually, too.
Yeah, it just depends on where you are. You could get the best care. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you might be next to a German base and you get really great care, and while you're being treated, you get a beer.
Yep.
Someone sneaks you out.
I mean,
what about
someone in the Air Force?
He could walk, I would pair him with the guy missing the other eye. I literally did that. I tied two people together. They each had lost an eye, and
I just Sebastian Junger, I think he was New York Times back when they at least pretended to be a real publication. Maybe he was somewhere else, but he wrote a book called War, and he went, I think it's the Kandahar province, and this was right after we went in. So it was combat a lot. Then the movie he did was called Restrepo, I think, named after one of the guys.
That was hard to watch.
So
I watched that in a theater with half of the people there were there.
Yeah, that's our sister, during my deployment.
Okay. Just there's the one, I mean, a lot of things jumped out. I read this probably 10 years ago-ish, but one of the things that just always stuck with me is the story he gave of they were out on patrol, and there's something 6 miles from base, and a guy fell off a small cliff and shattered his ankle. It ended up being shattered in 17 places. And the medic there took a look at it and was like, it's a bad sprain. Gave him a fentanyl lollipop and a brace and was like, you got to walk home. And the guy just walked back because there's nothing else he could do in that thing. And I've always wondered, what is it like getting injured or sick in a place like that? Because you've got to be sick half the time, right? I mean, it's not.
Yeah, I mean,
we did not grow up to take food like that, to breathe air like that.
Hygiene is bad. Hygiene is difficult. I was on a transition team. It's a MIT team is what we call it in Iraq. It was military transition team. So I was living, eating, sleeping with the Iraqis and going out every day fighting with them. And I ate their food every day. And the way they prepare their food, and the way that I don't think they know how to wash their hands, all of them. And they're young kids. They're young kids chopping up a bowl. And then the number of flies that are there, there's so many flies flying on your food as it's getting prepared and as you're eating it, you quit swatting them because as soon as your hand moves past 100 of them, they just sit on it. And so then you just eat your food as, with the fly sitting on it. And so you're going to get sick, and you just have to deal with it because it's going to happen. And, you're going to be puking your guts for a week.
Yep.
And then your body gets used to it. Thank God we have resilient bodies, and you develop immunities to some of
natural immunity.
Yeah.
COVID natural immunity.
Did you guys eat the fish?
So I was going, Rob, I don't know everything. Rob, what do you really want to hear from us? Because I got this gross story. So I was,
Let's do it.
I was eating a fish.
I'm excited. Whatever the Emmy is for podcasts, I'm putting this episode up for it. So.
I just don't know if I want all this blast. I mean, no one's going to listen.
They
don't want to see me yet.
Yeah.
So, all right. So they cut this fish right here, straight down the front, and they slapped it down, face down on my bowl of rice. And so I'm breaking bread, grabbing the meat. And as the months go by, I'm losing weight. I get hungrier and hungrier. So I get closer and closer to the gills and the brain of the fish. Finally, I'm just so hungry and I need protein. I started eating all of the fish. And then what I did wrong was I flipped it upside down, the right side up, and there's this big eyeball staring right at me.
If you're Asian, you just eat the eyeball.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, I'm not.
The reason I asked that question is because I lived in Hong Kong for a couple years, so China, toured a lot of China, and Hong Kong's a Western city. I mean, it really is. It's modern. It's got its weirdness, but so does everywhere else. Like, it's just personality. But the food my stomach was not conditioned for that food, and it took about 6 months. So when people would come visit us, I'd be like, buckle up. Like, you're going to eat some amazingly like, this is going to taste great. And then tomorrow you're going to regret it. And then you mentioned, I think, James, you mentioned people from Nepal. We had friends come through Hong Kong and go to Nepal. And it was this whole marketing thing. Guy sells stuff from Nepal. And they got back and we had big plans. And they just threw up for 2 days because in Nepal, they ate what they did not realize was raw bacon. That's just like, there's nobody's stomach in the world. Like, bears can eat raw bacon,
I'd be fine.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Probably.
absolutely. That's delicious.
Interesting.
Bats from
From
Western
Wuhan.
China. Yeah, Wuhan lab.
Very interesting.
I do want to bring it back to something about the ending of Afghanistan, because I want to plug two things that I went up to DC recently a few months ago and saw. And there's a documentary that was made as we were pulling out of Afghanistan called it's called Retrograde, and you can see it on Disney Plus and a couple of other areas for free. And it started with special forces of the U.S. combined with the special forces of Afghanistan. And they worked hand in hand until Biden said they had to pull out. And you see the real reaction of them learning of this. It's so well done.
What's that? Biden tells Hunter to pull out?
Not enough.
Sorry. I might edit that out.
But yeah, so you see that their actual reactions, which is heartbreaking. It's really well done. It made me cry for about 3 days. But there's groups called like the Moral Compass, and they're veteran groups that are angry with all the waste and abuse we've done in these other countries and with our money and then to our veterans. And they're just trying to find a way to give purpose again to the pain that's happened since we've left.
Well, so look, Justin, you say like how far down this rabbit hole do we want to go? And I get it. Like part of the reason that I have so much respect for soldiers, especially veterans, is you all go do this stuff so I didn't have to. And it had the situation called, anyone pushed into a corner, but like, I don't want to. I don't want to see it. I don't want to have gone through what you do. And I'm so thankful you did. But there's also a very important element of like making sure people are aware, like, this is what we fought for so hard, and this is where the money went, and then this is what happened because of it. So psychology is more my background, and with grief specifically, there's like the big four, and it's like death, moving, breakups, oh, and I forget how they talk about it, but war isn't really part of it. And when you look into it, it's like, well, why isn't war one of these? And it's like, no, it's too awful. That's it's got its whole own thing. It's what war does to the brain, what seeing that. But on the flip side, and I've thought about this for a long time. So like a good example, we talk about the scars of America's past, but there's a lot of amazing art that is 100% American that has roots in slavery. And I've always thought that the deeper pain is, the more beautiful the things that can come out of it are. And this isn't a justification for this stuff, but what I'm getting at here is, because we're coming up on over an hour, y'all have been great and I appreciate it, but it's not all bad. Like soldiers have these bonds that cannot be compared anywhere else. There's things that come out of it. As much as it was a waste for KBR to hand you that rice, you got to give that rice to someone. Like you gave someone, you sustained them for another day. So let's end on a high note. Like tell me some of the good sides, the things that you'll miss, the things that you remember, the things that you hope your kids know about.
You two go first. I mean, mine's
None
different.
of us are jumping to talk about this.
Yeah, Rob, the things I miss were combat. I mean, was combat. That was my high while I was there, was getting attacked each day, was the highlights, because there was so much boredom. But that was something that was forging for me. That was,
That's not uncommon.
yeah.
Like a lot of soldiers say that because you get trained and conditioned so well to be able to respond. So you're not thinking, you know exactly what to do. You know how to clear a building. You know how to make sure if your weapon jams, I do this.
Yeah.
And it all makes sense. And then you come here and nothing makes sense.
Yeah. That was my high point. I mean, giving out medicine, like having leaders meetings, having medical brigades come down, setting up tents for that, seeing kids with, leishmaniasis getting treated. I mean, you can't really take care of it, but you can put a Band-Aid on it or something. You can at least give you medicine to make the symptoms less worse. A lot of those people had never seen aspirin before. To be able to give that out, especially to that entire populace that does a lot of free sitting. Like, when I say free sitting, I mean, like, you see a lot of people squatting on the ground. Like, that's where they normally sit. Like, their knees, once they get older, are wrecked. Just kind of like airborne people. I mean, they're wrecked. But I mean, giving out medicine.
I always wondered that.
Yeah. Being able to, reach out to the populace and help them out, to help them prosper. Like, that was a great thing for me. It's like, hey, I see you guys don't have a shovel. Like, you're trying to do all this stuff by hand. Here's like 5 shovels. It's ours. Like, they're a little beat up on our end, but you guys take them. You do with them what you will. In fact, you tell us what we're going to do. I mean, what you guys are trying to do. We'll bring our tractor out here or our bulldozer. We'll do all of it within an hour, what you guys have been doing for like weeks. That stuff was great for me. Like, being able to help them directly was good for me.
Awesome.
Justin, you go.
Rob, that was a really long question, and so there is 2 parts of it that I want to answer. The first part, too much. The first part is, you've mentioned our past and the scars of our past. President Eisenhower told us when he was leaving office, be aware of the industrial war complex, the war industrial complex. Why have we not listened to him? Teddy Roosevelt, when he was in office, told us, speak softly and carry a big stick. Why have we not listened to him? Our founding fathers wrote the Declaration of Independence and said that all men were created equal. And when they said all men, they meant all men, and men was the term they used for everyone back then. They meant everybody. It just took a while for those policies to take effect. So why do we not listen to our founding fathers? What am I going to miss? I'm going to miss the people saying thank you for your service. When I'm going to miss walking through the airport in my uniform and everybody interrupting me and thanking me for my service. As simple as it sounds, I did it for all those thank yous did make a difference. And that's one little thing that kept me from getting out for many years.
That's awesome.
Mine's not as nice as theirs, I don't think. I tell people the government's going to screw you over, so take everything you can from the government. And so in the
Amen.
military, take it all. I got a bachelor's degree that the military paid for, 2 master's degrees. They taught me Russian. They taught me skills I'm not going to say, or I'll end up on another watch list. You know, engineer. They sent me to engineering school. I can now drill into cement and build homes and do all kinds of stuff. I'm really grateful for all those skills. And then the people I had to do in the corporate world, this like, are you a secret racist kind of class? I don't remember what it was called, equality, diversity, blah, blah, blah. And they asked us all these questions. You had to put like these candies in a jar. And it was like, when is the last time you went to the movies with someone of a different race or your own race? And it was the dumbest thing. And I got so mad at the end. I was like, and I actually during it too, because I said, I'm mixed. So do I get to account for all of them? Like, or is it mixed people? And I realized during that though, that if you had asked me, when is the last time I did something with a non-veteran, I would have lost. When's the last time you went to a movie with a non-veteran or not a spouse of a veteran or so, you know, you do have that bond and you understand each other. You meet another veteran, you instantly know what they went through in basic. You know the ups and downs of deployments or what it's like to not get sleep for a few nights. You know that you don't care if you're going to go sit on the ground and eat food. Like, there are certain things in the corporate world that I do that people are like kind of shocked. I'm like, what? Like, I've eaten in mud. That's awesome is the camaraderie that comes from it and the skills. But for me, when I think about the med caps we did, that's where you like bring medical people to help a village or whatever. I also unfortunately have seen the videos of since we've left Afghanistan of mowing the people down. The people that got our help have been murdered. So I have that a very strict non-interventionist libertarian belief, because whenever we go in and help, we're not helping. We're helping ourselves and we're hurting them. It'd be better if we gave those people scholarships to come here to learn and take it back. You know, like there were so many, Martin Luther King Sr. and the lovely lady who wrote Gone with the Wind, they did this program where they gave scholarships to Black males to be doctors. But the one stipulation is they had to like go back and work in their community for a few years, and they had to fund another doctor once they got money. And I feel like that would have been better done in those other countries as they did, you know, help the country, but help them go back and help them enrich their country. But going through and trying to overtake and be basically their daddy for a few years did not work. It just hasn't.
Yeah. Have any of y'all ever read The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien? I highly recommend it. It's a short story. It's like 8 pages long. My degree is in English literature. It's probably my top 2 favorite short stories, and few things I've ever read have encompassed what I thought more like deeply expressed like the full range of what it is to be in the military. So one last question, and I want to give each of y'all a chance to plug whatever you want to plug, but something that the only question I had prepared coming in, actually, something that's fascinating to me. Have any of y'all ever experienced stolen valor?
Yeah.
No, but that's so 2 out of 3. So this is like, this really happens.
Like, have you known somebody who lied about something they did, Justin? Like, they're like, I was in combat and I did da da da, and you're like, no, you didn't.
This really happens. What the hell is wrong with people? Tell your stories, please. I couldn't believe when I was reading about this.
Or do you 2 want to go first, or you want me to?
I'll go first. Sorry, I didn't know we were. I was a company commander, and some soldiers were joking around about airborne school. Not in front of me. This has happened in their office. They were joking around about airborne school, and they realized there was a soldier who did not go to airborne school, and he had lied about it on his resume, and he was wearing the patch. They came to me and told me what happened, and what I did was I sent it to legal, just like I was supposed to. I sent it to legal. I called them and told them what we found out, and we wrote down our sworn statements. 2 hours later, that soldier was cutting his wrists.
Oh,
Jesus.
goodness. Because it's definitely a mental disorder to have to make that up too, I would think. And then that's probably not one step further if you,
Yeah, I guess so.
yeah.
He did not die, but he was.
Is it every 21 seconds one tries? I didn't even want to get into that. This conversation got a little dark, so I shouldn't laugh
That's
about
the
it.
military way. We go darken up and then we laugh
No,
about it.
it's
Welcome to that roller coaster, man.
and anyone listening, if you want to check out my Prosper Charlotte 2023, I'll give my plug real quick, but I'm not asking for money. I have a link to my donation page for my American Foundation for Suicide Prevention on there. I lost my best friend to suicide 8 years ago. That's what all my tattoos are about. So that one hits home like, goddamn. Christina, what's yours? You seem like you have plenty, but
Oh, mine usually just have to do with, males who want to talk about them having PTSD when they clearly were a signal guy in the Navy and didn't go anywhere or do anything. And they talk about some sort of combat. I mean, I've heard it from so many, even there's an Army guy I know, and he's always trying to up his percentage because his PTSD was so severe. I'm sorry, sir. You spent 5 years as an IT guy with a ground unit that didn't do anything, and you deployed for how many months before you drank yourself too much and you had to be sent home? And you're
wow.
and I know, I've seen records where I know that gentleman was kicked out for alcoholism, not PTSD. And I definitely would say PTSD can cause alcoholism, but not for this person. They were like that before and they're still like it today, and they just want more money and more handouts from the government. That frustrates me.
Mine was outside of the military, was from a civilian. I think it was the second year that I was here after I'd moved to North Carolina. I'd gone to the Wake County Sheriff's office because I was trying to go for a pistol purchase permit.
Ugh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hey, it's way back then, so thankfully it's gone.
Yeah.
But I remember crossing the street, going to the courthouse, and the sheriff's office, and there was this guy with a black t-shirt tucked into some Arctic camo pants, and he was, when you have a guy talking into a cell phone and you can tell he's talking to someone, but he may not be because he's like, yeah, I swear if I ever hear that again, I'm gonna kick the door down, I'm gonna do what my Army training says. And I'm like, I stopped, I'm like, I just wanted to listen for a little bit, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And eventually I was like, hey man, are you in? I was like, oh yeah, I'm in right now. I was like, do you have your CAT card on you? Which is your common access card, so ours with the picture, and then it's got the little chip built in it. It's like, oh, I don't know what that is, man. It's like, ears popped up. I'm like, okay, where are your dog tags, man? I'm like, oh, I left those back in overseas. I'm like, okay, hold up.
You're full of it.
And then it just keeps getting worse and worse from here. But he walked into the sheriff's station. He's like, hey, I'm gonna need a military waiver for getting this pistol purchase permit. I'm like, I followed him and I'm like, okay, I need to get one. That's bullshit. That dude's not even in. So I'm like, hey, bailiff, would you mind arresting this guy? He's actually trying to get benefits for claiming to be in the military. And as soon as the security officer had heard that, he started walking towards the guy. He bolted out.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my one story of it.
That I didn't even know this was a thing. And it's a few years ago, and I was reading a story. There's this ex-Navy SEAL who goes looking for this now, but the first time he encountered it, someone was in a full uniform and sitting at a bar getting free drinks. And the same thing as with you, what you said, James, like talking nonsense. So he gets the guy out of the bar and he's talking to him, and it turns out that this guy's twin brother had been killed in action. And this guy did this on the anniversary of his death every year, but didn't live this way otherwise. They became really good friends, and they now do something. I mean, it's been a few years. I don't know what's up on it, but I was just reading the article about it, and now they go looking for people who do exactly what you said, pretend to be in the military to specifically to get the benefits. Ooh.
I don't know. I feel like if you're that mentally ill, I would just let it ride.
And that's kind of the common thing is now. It's like, all right, this person clearly needs help. Maybe just tell someone, it's like, okay, if they're trying to use, like, yeah, that person's not in, but just go with it. They'll be gone. Just be wary for next time.
Well, the moral of the story is we never should have had pistol purchase permits. So
Agreed.
Facts. Ridiculous.
hey, all three of you, thank you. Like, I mean, I really think this is the best recording we've had. This was deep. Like, I learned a whole bunch. I didn't know.
Wait a minute, it's my second time here. That one wasn't better. Just kidding.
I was learning too. I was learning a lot. Yes, you always bring light to the party, Christina. But I really, really appreciate all three of you coming on. I appreciate you going places. I don't know where it goes dark for you. I don't know what's tough to talk about, what isn't. So thank you for doing this. For everyone listening, Justin's running, James is looking for support for his party, and Christina is pushing candidates. And I will let all three of you plug what you're doing in a minute. But if you are listening, support these three individuals. You heard what they went through for you. You really want to give back. You really want to support your country. Here's your opportunity. But Justin, you want to give just a 60-second plug on where you're running, where people can go to support you.
Sure. So I am running Justin Herbe.
Nice.
My
I'll put it
website-
all up on the screen too.
Okay. Justin Herbe for District
love
5 .minisite.ai /. I'm running for City Council District 5. I retired out of the Army 2 years ago. I'm a small business entrepreneur, real estate investor. I want our government out of our personal lives. I want to represent everyone in our city, not just the 19% that turn out to vote. It's really a shame when you don't vote. It shows when nobody votes, you get people that don't care and they don't want to represent you. And for that, we need accountable, responsible leaders in our government who represent everyone. I want to increase the pay for the police officers so that they can protect our neighborhoods. I also want to love the homeless population in a way that God loves them, and look at them in a way that God sees them. If we step over them and kick them aside and treat them like trash, we're going to have a bigger crisis on our hands. And unfortunately, I do know that problem is going to get worse before it gets better. And as a transparent, accountable candidate, I'm going to be telling everyone why I voted for what I voted on. When I do get elected, I'll be holding town hall meetings. I'm going to explain to people what I voted on and why. And if I do make mistakes, I apologize. Saying you're sorry is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of accountability. Thanks.
Thank you. Christina, what do you want to plug?
October 10th, our primaries, vote. November, vote.
Is it
Please
the
take
7th, the 8th?
$25. What's that?
The 7th, the 8th, I forget what that Tuesday
Yeah,
is.
I think it's November 8th. Take
7th.
$25 and find a candidate and donate to their campaign. It
Amen.
doesn't hurt. $25 is small. I'm sure you can find somebody decent. There's Justin. Rob's running. There's plenty of people running.
I'm not accepting donations. I'm being serious. If you go to my
You can go
website,
up to $1,000. Well, then you can direct them to somebody you think should take.
I
a
directed it to
donation.
my suicide prevention fund. I
But most
self-funded. It's
importantly,
like $800.
everybody should volunteer to work at a
Amen.
poll for 2 hours during election days. Just 2 hours. Pick someone you care about and go to the polls, or take an hour on a Saturday and get your steps in and knock some doors. That's
I want to double
That's the
down
most
on that one.
important.
We get about
Yeah.
500 people listening to each one of these. If you volunteer 2 hours, that's 1,000 hours of poll working. We're up against a $500 million election machine in this state. It is impossible to overstate how valuable that is. All right,
I will
James.
not work on election days. I will absolutely be at a poll for somebody the
Yeah,
full
same.
day from morning until evening. Every year, period. Primary and general. I'm not saying everyone should, but most of you should.
James, what would you like to plug there?
Two things. So just want to remind everybody that 988 is the suicide and crisis lifeline
Amen. Good call.
number. I've lost way too many brothers to it, but please call that number. Even if you're struggling and you have nobody else, 2 o'clock in the morning, please dial that number for everybody's sake. Second part, again, we're trying to get a new party established here in North Carolina to help fight the duopoly. If you're a moderate Republican, if you're a libertarian that, doesn't quite fit in with the party, hey, come check us out at vpofnc.com. You don't have to be a veteran to join. You just have to be a patriot, a constitutionalist, and someone that wants to adhere to traditional American values.
And even if you are a libertarian and you're not looking to switch parties, but you just like having more liberty-minded parties in the mix, and you hate the duopoly or the uniparty, we call it the uniparty. That's important. Duopoly implies there's really a difference. Go check them out. So when you're looking at this, all the links will be up on the screen. All three of you, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your service, and sincerely, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the evening's Liberty Inc. Again, your source for all things liberty in North Carolina. Today, it is our honor to have with us as our guest, the treasurer of North Carolina, a staunch friend of the Libertarian Party. We're still working on him and a couple things to get him to move this way. But Dale Folwell, how you doing, Dale?
I'm doing great, and it's great to be with you, whether it's in person or by Zoom. I reminded the folks that I spoke to tonight that the root word of liberal is to liberate, to set economically free, and that's why I'm always so happy when I get invited to any of your events.
Well, we are very happy to have you for sure. And joining us tonight is the LPNC chair, Ryan Brown. How you doing, Ryan?
Cheers, doing well, thank you.
Cheers to rebellion.
Raise a glass to freedom.
What are you drinking tonight?
Back to the usual Knob Creek, so
I'm
there
on
you
a Woodford Reserve special.
excellent.
And then also with us, the Wake LP chair and running for Holly Springs Town Council, Travis Groo. How you doing, Travis?
Hello, and it's great to be on here, and thank you for coming on, Dale.
Thank you for having me.
So Dale, in particular, we had chatted. I really want to get into some healthcare stuff. So I'll
let's
tell
go.
you, I probably know less about this than any other issue out there because it's confusing. And one of the things that always occurs to me is that while there are significant problems in the U.S. healthcare system, I'd still rather be sick here than anywhere else. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, this is how I've presented to your group in the past, that there's no libertarian, Republican, Democrat, or unaffiliated that consumes healthcare. It consumes them. It's the only products in our life where we don't know the value and the price of it, even after we've consumed it. And the reason it's so important for the Libertarian Party or any other political party in this state is that we're now talking about a product that over 20% of the bankruptcies in the United States are the result of things associated with the consumption and medical billing or the inability to pay a medical bill. And this is stunting upward mobility and people's joy of achievement, which is the opposite of liberation.
So can you go into some of the factors that are driving the problems with healthcare, and especially in North Carolina?
Yes, it's greed. It's these multi-million-dollar CEOs who work at these corporations who disguise themselves as nonprofits, who don't pay sales tax, income tax, or property tax. Why should that matter to your viewers? The reason it should matter to you and the Libertarian Party is that those taxes are the taxes that fund things that you care about: public education, public safety, public works, and public roads. So we're talking about multi-billion-dollar corporations disguising themselves as nonprofits run by these multi-millionaire executives who refuse to abide by President Trump or President Biden's executive order by telling people what things cost, who refuse to match the charity care with the tax benefit that all the citizens give them, and who refuse to exercise common sense nor courtesy when it comes to breaking people's kneecaps for not paying their bill, and refuse to tell people what they make at these executive contracts. Because, Rob, if you were ever to get a copy of these executive contracts, what you would quickly realize is that they have put profits over patients. And the reason these healthcare entities were created was to put patients over profits.
So I have a question, Dale.
Yes.
Elected, how do we address some of this the billing issues coming from, let's say, the major hospital networks? How do you address that? How do you make more transparent billing when patients go to the hospital and 3 months later they get bills from doctors' offices and pathologists that they didn't even know anything about, and it's surprise billing basically? How do we address this, or how are you going to address this?
Well, the way I'm going to address it is the way I've been addressing it. And Rob might not have me back on his Zoom after saying this, but we suck. And the first thing we suck at is that we have these hospital executives who have given the middle finger to both President Trump and President Biden, who both have signed executive orders to get rid of these secret contracts, because you can't figure out the value and the price of anything, including that t-shirt you're wearing, unless you know what the price is. And so the first thing that we need to do is we need to enforce the laws of North Carolina so that these hospitals are forced to tell you what things cost. Secondly, we have the medical debt deweaponization bill that passed the North Carolina Senate 48-0, and it's now stuck in the House. And the speaker, in 5 minutes, the Speaker of the House could push the medical debt dewep bill through the House of Representatives. And this is going to shock you, Travis. It would catapult us to #2 in the country in terms of protecting consumers. Now, nobody on this call so far is old enough. You may have been a caregiver, but obviously you're not as old as I am, where you've done that 4 times. We now have laws on the book, Travis, that say that if your spouse runs up a $300,000 healthcare bill or a $50,000 healthcare bill, and they die and don't pay it, then you get your own credit destroyed. That is literally on the books right now. And part of the medical debt deweaponization bill says that when a person dies, the medical bill dies with them.
So you can say you suck all you want, and it will get you back on this podcast for sure. It's actually the part where it's like we should listen to the presidents that I'm going to be a little dicier on. But in all seriousness, one of the things that's always occurred to me about healthcare. So I believe in market forces to fix everything. I'm 100% convinced that the market is the most equitable, efficient distributor of goods. Healthcare, one of the things that I've always sort of wrestled with is you don't always have the opportunity to make a choice. If you call an ambulance for a heart attack, you can't say, hey, wait, can you take me to the other hospital because they're cheaper? You're going to get taken care of. So I guess my question for you is, like, in terms of these medical transparency bills or some approach to medical transparency, like, how much do you think that plays into creating a free market solution?
Well, it's a combination of things. Number one, we need to repeal the certificate of need law. You have that great big book over there. It's got a binder on it. Yeah. And I'm known for my props, and Travis knows this. Everybody talks to you about certificate of need. Thank you. Of course. I want to show you what 1 month's agenda looks like at the CON of North Carolina. This is it.
Wow.
Look at that. This is 1 month's agenda. So if you want to have an X-ray machine, I used to stutter, so I'm not supposed to say lithotripter or whatever that word is. But if you want to have something, you've got to go through the certificate of need process. Now, it doesn't matter what part of the state you're from. If you take the first 3 letters of certificate of need, it's pronounced con. It is a con on the people of the state. They control the supply. They're a cartel. They control the supply of healthcare. They control the quality of healthcare. They control the access to healthcare. They control the price of healthcare, and they control whether they break your kneecaps or not. Now, let me talk about price briefly. Travis and many others have seen this, but when I tried to find out what we were paying for healthcare at the state health plan, this is what was returned to me as the price list.
Oh, blacked out.
All blacked out. So, Rob, you're supposed to say, "Are you serious?"
Are you serious?
Dale,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
I'm not surprised,
Dale,
actually.
Dale, yeah, I'm serious.
Yeah. See,
Hell
I've put.
yeah. I
You-
do
you-
have one question about medical freedom.
Isn't it past your bedtime, Travis?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. I'm struggling right now. I'm on the struggle bus, but hang in there. You're the reason why we're late. But you're the night owl here. No, medical freedom is.
I started at 4:30 this morning, Travis.
Yeah, you got me beat then.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah.
Medical freedom.
Medical freedom is a big deal in our party. We recently just interviewed a doctor that left the traditional medical field to start his own practice, and they don't take insurance and stuff like that. It's a pay per month type of, almost a prescription or a it's you can go as many times as you want a month for a fee, I should say. And they don't believe in taking insurance. They find better deals for pharmaceuticals and for medicine, and they're more about homeopathic type of healthcare. Now, do you think this is something that we should be pursuing and get away from the
Absolutely.
health insurance type of deal?
Absolutely. Now, Travis, I think you would describe me as a conservative. So the example I'm getting ready to give to you is not very conservative.
Yeah. Okay.
I've been married to my lovely wife, who you've met, for 35 years. And she went in to get a hearing test. It's genetic. And now she got the results of the hearing test back. And what it said was the only octave of hearing that she has difficulty with is the sound of my voice. That's really true. But my point of saying that, Travis, is that when they tried to charge her $150 copay for this hearing test, she did what I asked her to do and ask what the cash price is. The cash price, this is directly your point, Travis. The cash price for that procedure was less than the copay. And I'm a big fan of medical freedom as it relates to your question.
Nice.
I'll jump in as well, because I want to circle back to certificate of need laws a little bit. The certificate of need laws, I guess, they basically prevent that competition, right? They prevent the new businesses from popping up easily. They prevent all this other things. Do you know if there's much appetite to get rid of those in the state, by and large? Or
yeah, everybody talks about it, Ryan. Nobody does anything about it.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
I mean, the cartel is so powerful. I mean, Atrium Health, who you've heard of, Atrium Health has $15 billion in the bank right now. They have half the state budget in the bank. So this cartel does not want the certificate of need to go away.
Doesn't sound like it. Then if we do this Medicaid expansion, is that gonna just pump more money into them?
Hang on a minute. Jim.
I really truly don't believe that Dale Folwell wants Medicaid expansion. I could be wrong. You could have changed your tone since the last time we talked, but I really don't think that you're going to be pushing for Medicaid expansion, are you?
The reason is that our problem with healthcare is not a revenue problem, which is what Medicaid expansion does. Our problem is a cost problem and a lack of transparency problem, and not being a proponent of free medical.
So how do you solve it?
You get
You're
rid
not
of,
old. You're not quite old enough to understand this, but if you think, I mean, you didn't live through what I'm getting ready to describe. Is a better way of saying that.
Fair enough.
saying you're a baby. You're a
yeah.
baby, Rob.
So we had a lot of great things happen in our country in the 60s. And it wasn't the result of the lawmakers. It was the result of the music. We have so much of our society right now who's adopting the theme of Popeye, which is I can't stand it because I can't stand it no more. People are no longer going to tolerate, no matter what political party they're a member of, what race they are, or what gender they are. They're no longer going to tolerate having 20% of their income going towards something they don't understand. That's the music that's being written right now. And that's the reason these alternative free market options are jumping up on the table, Travis.
I'm going to bring up something that you may or may not want to comment on, but I will tell you that it's extremely popular among North Carolinians, and it's growing more and more popular in other states. And that is the legalization and the decriminalization of marijuana. The federal government owns the patent on cannabis, and they hold it over people's heads. They basically bought it up so they can control it because they can't make money off of it. But the health benefits in cannabis is through the roof. And I believe that if people were able to consume cannabis oil, a lot of our health issues would actually go away instead of taking pharmaceutical drugs. So my question is, will you, as a Republican, libertarian leaning governor, decriminalize marijuana in our state?
Well, this is what I've said on that topic. I'm in favor of medical marijuana if it's properly regulated.
That means properly regulated.
Well, I don't know what that looks like, but the fact is that I have answered questionnaires, and I'm answering your group today to say that I'm in favor of medicinal marijuana, and that is as far as I've ever gone on that topic.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Do you think that ties into? So there's actually sort of a broader question there. Oh God, I feel so cliche because I just watched Painkiller on Netflix. But how much do you feel like the pharmaceutical industry has influenced some of the direction that the healthcare system has gone in a negative way, and in particular pushing medicine we don't need?
All of it.
Yeah, it's that much.
I'll just repeat what my former neighbor in Winston-Salem, Maya Angelou, used to say, and that is when a person shows you who they are the first time, you should believe them. And that's who the pharmaceutical industry is, and that's who the hospital cartel is, always putting profits over patients. I mean, we're dealing with this with a very serious inquiry right now with the cost of insulin. And, when you get insulin inadherent, you're in a medical vortex, you're in trouble. So I think the pharmaceutical industry, every time they try to point a finger at someone else, they need to realize that God made our hands so that three more are pointing back at them.
Yeah, good point.
Well, I really appreciate that. I'm actually type 1 diabetic myself. And so when I was diagnosed, it was up in the mountains. And as soon as I called someone I knew who was type 1 diabetic, they said, well, don't take any more meds without talking to me, because the hospital where I was in the emergency room, they were using technology that's probably 15 years old.
Right.
So, I would love just to see sort of the more competition among some of these healthcare systems. And I think the best way to do that's remove certificate of need laws. We went over that a little bit, but do you know of any way that you could increase the quality or maybe decrease the price in the state in some of these regions that are not the RTP or the Raleigh area?
That's something we're working on. Ryan, you might be pleased to know that 4 years ago, before anybody talked about this, we eliminated the cost of insulin for our state employees. Eliminated the sticks, the insulin, the strips. We eliminated the cost of all that for our state employees because the price of that stuff had gone up so much, it was our insulin adherence was going down, and you know what happens when insulin adherence goes down.
Sure.
Secondly, I just approved $180 million. I just approved $180 million for a new water treatment plant in Clayton, North Carolina. That's for Novo Nordisk, who's one of the ones that's jacking up the price of these products. But they are supposedly developing the oral insulin pill. I think a true oral insulin pill would make a big difference in your life.
How much, can I follow up on that? So how much are we subsidizing some of these companies who are taking in these record profits?
All of it.
Really? I looked into it a bit today. So I have some questions I want to ask. I try to do my research, especially on something I don't know much about, and it's hard to tell.
Yeah, all of it. And it's a serious matter, and that's why we did what we did at the state health plan, the board of trustees, which I'm very proud of them making that decision under my suggestion. But you know, I started helping my grandmother inject insulin in 1965. 65, that's when your parents were living. And the price of insulin, as Ryan knows, has tripled in the last 3 years. And the basic product has not changed a lot since 1965.
So Dale, you're running for governor. What is another major issue that you're concerned about in North Carolina that you're making it one of your top 3 issues?
Answering the damn telephones.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I mean, nobody calls their government to book a cruise.
Right.
They call because they have a need or a life-changing event. So number 1 is answering the telephones. Number 2, Warren Buffett taught me 38 years ago, it's hard to be as smart as your dumbest competitor. When your dumbest competitor is the federal government, who just got downgraded because of their inability to govern. Even though we're number 1 in the country, we're retiring 60% of our state debt. NC, this lapel pin I'm wearing today, stands for nothing compares. Even though we have all that going for us, you know, the next governor of North Carolina is going to have to understand how to protect our citizens, our economy, and our way of life from Washington, D.C.'s addiction for money or inability to manage.
Fair enough.
And I challenge you to get anybody else running for governor to talk about that topic.
I hope you talk about it more.
Okay.
I hope you make that front and center, because honestly, it's a swamp. And I hope that you drain the swamp in North Carolina.
I will.
Good.
What time is it, guys? I don't have a watch.
9:54.
Wrap it up in 5
9:54?
minutes.
Oh, good.
9:54.
And what time's that gas station close up there? 11, he said? Did he say the gas station closed at 11?
Yeah. Easy to go get some Black and Milds.
Oh, Travis, I thought you were a Swisher Sweet guy myself.
Oh, yeah. I like the Cubans. I like the Cubans. Yeah.
I heard you were high maintenance like that.
Yeah, I like the Cubans. I don't like the cheap ones.
Where are you running for city council?
Holly Springs.
Oh yeah, they're high maintenance. They'll love.
Yeah, I'll be on the ballot November 7th running for Holly Springs. So
good.
Shout out to all your peeps down here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If you get elected, can I swear you in?
Absolutely. Would you please?
I will.
Will they allow you to pick? Do they allow you to pick your?
Yes.
Okay, then yes. 100%.
Okay. We're not getting married or anything. We're just
No. I want you to swear me in. That would be the highlight of my life. So
yeah,
you know I'm a big fan of yours. So
I know that you've always treated me with radical hospitality.
Good.
So which is
the R in Grace, by the way.
Yep. You still riding a Harley at all, or?
I worked at a Harley shop 2 years. I've never ridden a Harley. I've raced. I've been racing 47 years. I race a KTM in the woods, and I ride a Gold Wing on the road.
Oh, Gold Wing. I thought you were a Harley guy, but you got a Gold Wing. Okay. Fair enough. Your son had a Harley.
Yeah, now he's on a Gold Wing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But don't underestimate those gold wings. That thing's 900 pounds, but it'll come up on the back wheel in second gear. Somebody has reported telling me that that can happen.
Did that somebody do it on purpose or an accident?
What is that?
Well, at 900 pounds on a gold wing, it's pretty much on purpose.
There you go.
All right.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. I'm enjoying talking with you, man. I wish you the best of luck. I think you're 1,010% better and more qualified than your opponent. And I tell you what, you're non-confrontational when it comes to social issues, and I believe that actually needs to be highlighted. I believe it needs to be louder. That you're kind of socially liberal in a way, and I think that that's a really a good thing for North Carolina. You just want people to live their lives and leave people alone. Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. Don't commit fraud or force or coercion. And we're in good shape. Live your life. Just don't.
I just believe that people deserve to be spoken to like adults, and what they hear makes common sense. And I'll go toe to toe with the Libertarian candidate or the Democratic candidate. But I think I have the responsibility to explain conservatism in a way that doesn't offend people.
Good.
Yeah, I would love to see all three guys on a stage.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
Well,
Yeah,
all
do
three-
what we could to make that happen.
I don't. Does that mean y'all aren't going to run a Libertarian candidate for governor?
we still will, but it just iron sharpens iron. We'll get the good
Actually-
Libertarian, the good Republican up there. See, I almost commented on Twitter that you're far too honest to be a mainstream candidate. So, but you would be personally, I think, the best character, the best person to run in the field who's not a Libertarian right now. So,
well, I'm not necessarily the IQ person. I'm the I can person. And, when you say iron sharpens iron and you got two rifles up in your background there, I just, I'll accept that analogy. I will tell you that my opponent in the Republican primary, according to some, told several sponsors last week that he will never appear anywhere with any of the rest of us as he applies for the job to govern the state.
Is he afraid that he's going to get called out for his hate speech or what?
I don't know. I was in church this weekend and I was just thinking, if God is love, why do some people hate so much?
Yeah.
That's a big philosophical question.
That's next week's podcast, right, Rob?
Yeah.
I'll be on time for that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I got nothing good to say about Mark Robinson or Josh Stein, and literally nothing.
I think
I
they're
guess-
both very passionate people. I'll give them that.
Yeah, about their own interests. I think Mark Robinson's origin story is legit. I'll give him that.
I've got my own story.
Yeah,
go ahead and
let's
tell
hear
it.
Well,
Okay.
my mom was raising 3 kids in the 70s with no child support or alimony and did not have a car for 2 years. And I did everything it took from the age of 11 to help support her in that situation. And I was a garbage collector and a motorcycle mechanic, and old school garbage collecting, like when you roll barrels and throw them up in the air. And I started taking classes at Winston-Salem State. And my first professor was a guy by the name of Suba Shaw. You need to know that name because Suba Shaw is the only person in the world who is the lifelong friend of Freddie Mercury and born on the same day in the same hospital in Zanzibar as Freddie was.
Interesting.
He actually has a documentary out about Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay.
So Suba was my college professor. And every day that I went to class at UNCG or Winston-Salem State, I wore the uniform of whatever job I was coming from or going to. And so I'm telling you this because to say that I'm not a victim of anything. And I had the opportunity to learn that the last 4 letters in the word American stand for I can. And I've not, try to surround myself with people smarter than I am, but I try to have the best vision, the best hearing, and the best heart. And I'm running against rage, and it just dawned on me the other day as I'm thinking through all this that the root word of, inside the word courage is the word rage. So, I know it's a little late in the night to be pulling that on you, but so
I love the word. All the wordplay.
So, Ryan, I went to look up what COU meant. It means of the neck. And I was reminded by my amazing wife who knows French. She said, but it really comes from COUR, which means from the heart.
Heart.
So I have the heart to fight the rage that's going on in my party right now.
Very nice. I like that. So, okay, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do want to ask this. Like, you're right there in the middle of it. So I'm actually running for office too. I'm running for mayor of Charlotte. And I was I didn't realize it was going to be a debate, but with Vi Lyles last Tuesday. And she said something really interesting. She said, I can go talk to the Biden administration if I want something, but I can't go talk to Raleigh. If I want something from Raleigh, Ed Riggs, who's a Republican, has to do it. And my response was like, what? That's crazy. Like, you can't just go talk to someone? Why not? Like, what's stopping you? Is it really that bad?
Yes. And it's that bad. And, if you grew up in the circumstances I grew up in, you don't have a choice but to talk to people. Number one. Number two, the people of Charlotte, let's just talk about transportation needs for a moment. I'm one of the 10 people that voted against the I-77 toll road. And I voted against it because I thought it was predatory toward low and fixed income people. If there had been a toll road between my garbage collecting job, my motorcycle mechanicing job, Winston-Salem State, UNCG, I would be sitting here as a candidate for governor. Couldn't have afforded it. And now I'm an opponent of the I-70, the Spanish being able to get the I-77 toll road through the rest of Charlotte. I think the people in Charlotte pay enough in tax. They've brought enough economic viability to our state. They deserve to have their roads properly funded like everybody else does without a toll on them.
Okay. So if elected, will you remove the 540 toll? I don't want to double pay, just like you said, and it's a faster way for me to get to work, but it's very expensive. It's like $4.50 one way. You do that, you do $9 a day to travel.
Well, see, Ryan will tell you that in some parts of Charlotte, it's $27 to get from exit 38 to exit 12, maybe. But
I'd pay it.
Huh?
I prefer that to sitting in traffic.
I know, but the Monroe
I'm not happy about it.
The Monroe bypass costs $2.14. Right?
At least lower it where it's like maybe $1 one way.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, Travis, this is going to really irritate you.
Okay.
Everybody says, well, the Spanish are going to give this back to the taxpayers of North Carolina after 30 years. Guess what you're going to find? See, everybody talks about seeing the forest for the trees. Occasionally, you need a tree person.
I'm a tree person.
A tree person. And let me give you a tree answer. The reason why giving that toll road back to us in 25 or 30 years, the I-77 toll road, is that it's inferiorly built. There's supposed to be 21 inches of asphalt on that road. There's 16 inches of asphalt. So the Spanish cut corners, and nobody followed up on it.
So it's going to deteriorate.
And you can never put trucks on it.
I literally, I have nothing to add. I knew nothing about road production. I'm gonna take your word on the like I.
But let me tell you something else that's going to irritate you. There's something in the insurance business called subrogation, and I'm getting examples of people who have accidents on the toll road that were caused by them, who are being asked by the toll road company to pay all the tolls that they did not earn while they were blocking traffic.
That's crazy.
That's messed up. We got to do away with that.
Yeah.
So in Charlotte, you're right. Transportation and housing costs are the two biggest things. And my biggest answers have been zoning restrictions and occupational licensing restrictions. So I'm curious what your thoughts are in there. Do you know we have 938 things for which you are required to get a license from the government to have a business in North Carolina, including like
hair
barber
braiding.
shops?
Hair
braiding.
braiding, parachuting,
Yeah.
Scuba diving, tattooing.
I don't think the hair braiding applies to beards, Travis. I think it's just hair.
Yeah. I was thinking about it, but I don't really like the way braided beards look very much.
No. Are those extensions or is that the real deal?
That's called a beard wig.
Okay, because
No,
the lady at Great Clips, and I always talk about it, costs a lot to look this cheap. The lady at Great Clips told me a couple weeks ago I had the most desired hair color in the world. It's called 18/22 in terms of hair extensions. This color of blonde, silver, gray is the most desired hair color.
Oh, some people are dyeing their hair that color on purpose. For real.
Yeah. Or the tips that they buy, they want it to blend into this color.
Yeah.
So, for no other reason, you shouldn't run a Libertarian candidate against me.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm trying to stay your second choice because you folks have a job to do.
I just want to see a debate between all the governor candidates. I think that would be a fantastic idea. We always say good ideas don't require force. So let the best idea be the most popular idea. And let's get everybody up there and let's ask them all the same questions. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Hey, I'm not.
And Travis, we do not get to know what the questions are ahead of time. You know,
That's
God does not whisper in your ear, there's a hurricane coming.
That's true.
I mean, it just happens. And that's what a governor, the root word of governor is to govern.
And you should be ready in season and out of season.
Right.
Hey, and if it gets to the point where Mike Ross, our candidate, wins, don't worry. He hates Josh Stein way more than he could ever try to nitpick anything you do. So
okay.
We'll treat you right up there. We won't sandbag it, but we just don't like Josh Stein.
Dale's got to go.
I can't tell you how sorry I am that I did not hit my mark tonight. And the last thing she said to me, all the power went out in our building at 3:00. And the last thing she said is that, you know, you're going to be at this event tonight. Vivek or Ramaswamy is going to be, she said, at 8:30, you got to get on this Zoom call. So,
are you at your house or at a party?
I am at a function that was held tonight on my behalf.
Oh, nice. Okay,
Gotcha.
man.
Well,
that is fantastic. You deserve it.
Well, I really appreciate you jumping on, especially knowing you had this event. Certainly respect your time. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do want to give you like 2 minutes. Make your stump speech. Like, what's your pitch? What's your case?
Well, I can't really do that because I think ethics, Rob, is what you do when no one's watching. And I'm sitting here. This event to talk with you tonight was organized by a state employee who's being paid with taxpayer dollars. This computer I'm on right now is a state computer. So I'd love to come back and answer that question sometime when I'm on a personal device. All I can say is that I've been the best treasurer money can't buy. And whatever it is, I'll
agree with that.
And whatever I do next, I'll be the best one of those that money can't buy.
Let me rephrase it then. From a serving the people of North Carolina perspective, what would you do differently that would really immediately benefit the people of North Carolina?
I would break the cartel.
We're right there with you.
Okay.
Yeah, we're right there with you.
Well,
Dale,
all right.
Thanks for having me on.
I really appreciate you jumping on. Love to
I
get you
get
back
invited
too,
back to Clemens again this year?
Yes.
Well, so it'll be in Clemens probably, but if you're still running at the time, I don't know how when the primary is, we might have to treat you a little different. So you can get up and probably teach us about the state, but you probably can't campaign. But we'd love to have you.
Yeah, there's different rules about that, I think.
Well, when is the convention?
It's not finalized yet, but it'll probably be finalized this week. So I'll let you know.
I mean, what month do you think it's in?
February.
Okay. Well,
Because we have our national one.
listen, I don't think it's fair to your party and your supporters and your candidate for me to be there, but just if it doesn't happen this time, I love having you in Forsyth County. Hope all of you will go around the corner to the Honda Winston-Salem from Clemens Inn and buy a Sea-Doo or a motorcycle while you're there. And it doesn't, my door, my heart, and my mind will always be open to you.
I love it.
Well, thank you, Dale.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you, guys. I apologize again.
No,
No
Dale,
worries.
you keep running hard, man. We got you.
Talk
Dale,
to you again
yeah.
soon.
Hey, Dale yells the campaigns.
There we go.
Dale yells. I've never
Dale,
seen you.
Dale, yeah.
Oh, Dale, yeah.
Yeah.
Dale, yeah. Let's go.
On
Bye,
that
thanks.
note, have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
Take it
you,
easy.
bye.
We appreciate it.
Uh-huh.